What's going on, guys? Alex here with 814 EDC, and today I'm ready to do my full review on the CDC Chicago. So this is, of course, the Crispy Donut Community Chicago. I believe this is their second knife that they have got, into realization. Unfortunately, I cannot find too much information regarding this knife on their website. I believe it was either a Kickstarter or a pre-order, but I can't find anything on the website, so I apologize about that. Find other stuff. They have like the Hansen, which was their first model. They have some EDC fixed blades, which are interesting. They have they did a collaboration with Vosteed on the Raccoon crossbar lock, where they pimped it out with this donut style G10. That's on the website. And they also have a CDC Salem coming soon, which looks very similar to this, which is a smaller, sort of stubbier blade. So like I said, I can't find too much information on this knife. I apologize about that. I don't know, I don't know why it wouldn't show up on the website, because I believe they did the pre-order on the website. So I'm not really sure what's going on about that. But speaking of the website, that'll be linked down below to go check out what they have. They have a pretty big website. They have knives, they have merch, they have patches, they have crossbar or pry bars, bottle openers, stuff like that. So definitely go check them out down below. It's a pretty good website, and I think you guys would enjoy seeing what's on there. So we're going to jump right into this. This came in via the Apex passaround group, I believe. And it's a cool knife. It's the first sort of donut knife that I've ever experienced, and I think it's good. It has some good qualities to it. I like the story behind it, and sort of the realization of the realization and the creation of this company, and the story behind that I really like. But yeah, I think it's a good quality knife. I believe the price point was probably right around $130, $140, which I can talk about later on in the video. I'll also try to leave a link to CDC's Instagram page down below. That might be getting some, you might be able to get some more information on this, message them, stuff like that. I realized I probably should have done that for you guys, but it just kind of slipped my mind until I started making this video. But we're going to jump right into materials. So, of course, the big draw of this knife and the big draw of the CDC Crispy Donut Community, product line in general is, of course, the donut, the donut EDC, tactical EDC, stuff like that. So this has a G10 show side scale. So it's pink G10 underneath, and they meshed it with blue G10. You can see the sprinkles on there, which is really cool. You have a lanyard hole back there that's built into the back spacer. You have a flipper tab up here. You have dual thumb studs over here, and on the lock side, it is a frame lock with titanium. So it is a dual material knife, which is always interesting. You have a milled titanium pot clip right there. You have a very interesting looking blade. This is sort of a spear foot, I think. It has a nice big hollow. It feels like a hollow grind belly, very thin. The blade stock thickness is also very, very thin. This is probably one of the thinner knives I've handled in a while. It's easier to tell in person how thin it is than it is on the camera, but this thing is paper thin, which matches really well with this hollow grind. You guys can see right there, CDC. This blade steel is S35VN, which it says right there, if my camera will focus. I really like the jimping building up here, because which we'll get to ergos later, but it works really well with the two different sort of grips you can have with this knife. More than two grips, but the two main grips that your hands can grip this knife in. I realize I just said grip like 17 times there, so I apologize. But it's on bearings. Lock bar access is pretty good. It doesn't look like it is, but once you get it in the hand and feel it, the way it's sculpted and kind of milled out right there, it feels pretty good in the hand. There is internal milling on both sides. You have 3 big pockets on the show scale side and 2 on the frame lock side. The blade is sort of a sandblasted. It's not really a stone wash or anything like that, but has a good kind of worker finish to it. I think that's all for materials. I don't really think I'm forgetting anything, so we're going to jump into action next. I believe, before we get into action, I believe the OEM is Kubi on this. I couldn't find much about this knife in general, but the way the frame lock looks and feels, the titanium lock side looks and feels, and it's basically the same pivot screws and stuff like that as they had on the my Bridgeport 395 that I had in, and I think Garrett had them had Kubi make those knives. So it's very, very similar. So that leads me to think that Kubi makes these knives as well. But action is good on this knife. So you have a flipper tab up here that is kind of interestingly shaped. I really like it. It works pretty well. Definitely sticks up a little bit and protrudes a little bit, but when you're talking about action, it works awesomely. You have some jimping up top there your finger can catch on. Bangs right out. I definitely prefer to do the push button as opposed to the, I don't really like kind of dragging my finger. It feels kind of weird. So I tend to just get right on the flipper tab and bangs right out. So that's very nice. Thumb flick also works incredibly well. The D10 on this is nicely tuned. You can hear it snapping back into place. So thumb flick works well. Middle finger flick works really well. I like the thumb studs and how they are sort of sculpted and jimped, which is very nice. Fires right out. And then of course on the close, because of how big that flipper tab is, it drops and hits your nail. You guys can see some just micro shakes close it very, very nicely. You can get your thumb, I'm gonna try to do it on camera. You can get your thumb out of the way. It's hard to do on this knife, but so most of the times I just tend to let it hit my thumb, and then from there I shake down. You can do some micro shakes, or you can just do one big shake. But it's very smooth. You can tell it's on bearings. I don't know, my voice just sounded like that. A little bit of blade play, but not very much. But it's nice and smooth. And I don't know where I was on the list for this pass around, but other than that, I mean, so it could be, obviously it's worn in. That's another kind of perk with getting pass around knives, is you get a pretty fidgeted with knife, which kind of gives you that true action of how it can feel after you own it for a while. But it's just very smooth, and it is very fun to fidget with. I definitely enjoyed it. I flicked it quite a bit, flipped it quite a bit, closed it quite a bit. So all in all, action on the Chicago is very good. Next up is ergos. And the ergos on this are also very good. So it's a bigger knife. Again, I don't have very many specs to go off of, but it's a pretty, it's in the medium range of knives, but I would say it's on the bigger side of medium knives. But it's a pretty simple handle shape. You have pretty much a straight line back here, a straight line here, and an indentation, for the fingers. You also have a sort of flipper choil up there you can use. So choked back, very comfortable. I can get all 4 fingers on here very easily. I don't feel, constricted. I don't feel pressed together, anything like that. This is where the first jimping lines come into play. My thumb falls right on them in a saber grip. It's very comfortable if you're doing push cuts. Hammer grip is also very comfortable. The G10 is nicely done. G10 is kind of a hated on material. I feel like it's kind of overlooked now because you have titanium and fat carbon and micarta and all those things. But at the end of the day, G10's a pretty nice material if it's done nicely. And the way the sprinkles are cut into the knife, it kind of gives you like that extra little bit of grip, which is also very welcomed. But it's very comfortable. Then you can choke up. So choked back, you obviously put your middle finger, your pointer finger in here, and the rest of your fingers follow suit. But when you choke up, your middle finger goes here, your pointer finger goes up around the flipper choil, and then your last 2 fingers go back here. And that is where the second row of jimping comes into play, because you're choked up, my thumb falls the whole way up here, and I really like that they included that. A lot of a lot of designers and knife companies don't really include that on their knives that have choils and that you're going to be using in a choked up position. And I really like how it's basically like, it's not sharp, but it's basically, it reminds me of like serrated saw teeth, because it grabs your finger and it hooks you in there. And I really liked how they did that. So when you're choked up, you can do some awesome push cuts. You can be very precise with what you're cutting through or around. You have a very good amount of control. The puck clip is even less of a hot spot when you're choked up. When you're choked back, yeah, you can feel it's there, but it's really not bad at all. You get used to it very, very quickly. Yeah, so, I mean, G10's nicely done. The titanium is also very nicely done, has some nice rounded edges. Really, the only thing that's sharp on this knife is, I forgot to mention, you do have jimping on the back here, which provides very good grip. So you do have jimping. The puck clip edges are a little bit kind of sharp, just the way you hold them. Really, you're never going to hold that in your hand when you're holding this knife, so you're kind of avoiding that in general. But yeah, with all the jimping and the sprinkle, basically serrations cut out of the knife, This thing gets locked in your hand very, very nicely. Probably one of the better ergonomic knives I've handled in a while, just due to that. I really like how the jimping's done. Basically, it's kind of my favorite thing with the ergos is when you're choked up. I really enjoy having that up there to just get your thumb locked in there to guide, because you're using your thumb for guide, for control, and you want to make sure you have a very good grip on this knife. And I think overall, the designers really knocked out of the park with the ergos on the Chicago. So next up, we're going to talk about carry. And carry is good. Of course, you have a milled clip, so it's not going to go super deep in your pocket. Has about that much showing up out of your pocket, which is okay. I know I've touched on this a few times before, but it's not a really big deal to me anymore. I've kind of gotten used to, with as many knives as I've had on the channel for review, I've gotten used to not caring too much about knives sticking up out of your pocket. As long as you don't have like this much sticking up out of your pocket, you're good. It is righty only. You cannot switch it to lefty, which is, I guess it's kind of understandable because you only have you have a titanium lock bar side, and you also you have two sides of the handle materials. So maybe they would make a lefty version in the future where you would have basically the sides flipped. But it sits in your pocket. You do have jimping basically down the entire side of the knife. So you're jimping here and here. And of course you have that big flipper tab down here with jimping on it as well. So you do have to be careful when you're going in your pocket to grab, change, keys, medicine, AirPods, anything like that, because you do have a risk of maybe catching this knife and pulling it up out of your pocket when you pull your hand up out. It doesn't happen very often, but you guys know I just like to touch on that and just like to point it out to you. But it sits in your pocket pretty well. I don't know a weight. It is, it has a little bit of weight to it, which of course is from that titanium lock bar side and stuff like that. But it's a decent sized knife. It's, right, like I said, sort of on the larger side of medium knives. But I had no issues in carrying it. I did carry it in khakis, and I carried it in gym shorts around the house, or excuse me, the apartment a few different times. And even in gym shorts, just being thrown in your pocket, despite how kind of hefty it is, I really couldn't feel like it was there. So I definitely have no complaints in the weight department. I think it's, for what you're getting, I think it's an adequate amount of weight, and I definitely don't have an issue with it. So that leads me to my final category of price point and would I recommend this knife. So like I said earlier, I want to guess the price point was $130, $140, $150, somewhere in that range. And I do think that is a very, adequate price of this knife. I wish I had a better number for you guys, a more accurate number for you guys. But that's just my guesstimation. So hopefully it's sort of in the ballpark. But I think this knife is really good. If this knife was a pre-order and it's currently in production, hopefully they have some left over for a drop for you guys. I don't think I'm going to run out and buy one of these, just because although I can appreciate the donut community that is in the EDC world, I just don't think that I don't like it enough. I like it. I don't love it enough to add one to my collection. But don't let my opinions, keep you guys from going out and purchasing one of these, because I do think that they're very well made. I think if they really are being made by Kubi, they're killing it right now. Thumb stud action on the middle finger flick, thumb flick is awesome. You have the flipper tab up there, is awesome. Closing action, nice, very smooth, very, just awesome to play with. It's a fun fidget knife. You have a very unique blade shape with a hollow grind, nice spear point with jimping up top here. The ergos are knocked out of the park on this knife. They killed the ergos. I think they did a really good job with that. So fit and finish is good. I think, and again, like I said earlier, I really like the story behind and the inspiration behind the CDC company as a whole. I believe it was two former cops or two current cops that sort of saw the donut thing kind of spreading around the community, and they jumped on it, which is funny because cops and donuts, it's sort of always been a joke. But I really like how they created this, and they, like I said, their website has shirts. It has pry bars, knives, patches. They have all kinds of stuff. So it's basically your one-stop shop for donut-related EDC items. So definitely go check that out in the link below. I don't think you guys will be disappointed. I definitely wasn't disappointed with this knife. I think it was a pleasant surprise. I really just checked it out because I just hadn't checked out one of their products before. Hadn't really checked out a donut EDC item before. So my expectations were met and then some. And I think this is a fantastic model. So if you guys can get your hands on one in the future, if they do a drop, definitely pick one up if you are a fan of the sort of tactical donut community that we have here in the EDC world. So I'm going to wrap it up, guys, but definitely leave a comment down below. What are your guys' thoughts on not only the Chicago and the CDC company, but your thoughts on the sort of donut community in the EDC world as well. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, but I'm going to wrap this up now. So thank you again so much for watching. I greatly appreciate each and every single one of you guys. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, morning, evening, night, whenever you're watching this, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.